After walking for what felt like an eternity, through the dense, dark forest and over treacherous, rocky mountains, the two young travelers were exhausted. Their clothes were caked in dust, their feet were raw and bruised, and annoying hunger was slowly draining their last reserves of strength. The young man, breathing heavily, turned to the girl. His voice was raspy. "Do you remember what the old woman told us?" he asked. "Before we reach the first village, we must ask the calabash for anything we want." She gave a weak nod, her hand resting on her empty stomach. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so hungry. Let's ask the calabash for food." Carefully, they placed the magical calabash on the ground. Together, they spoke the words into the still air. "Calabash, please give us food and water." In an instant, a miracle unfolded before their eyes. The calabash began to tremble, and a soft, golden light pulsed from within. When they cautiously lifted the lid, they gasped in disbelief. Inside was an abundance of fresh, delicious food and flasks of cool, clean water. It was more than enough to fill their aching stomachs. Laughter, pure and joyful, erupted from them as they thanked the calabash for its gift. But their relief was short-lived. As they were about to take their first bite, a sudden rustling in the trees startled them. A family of monkeys, a mother and her curious little ones, descended from the branches. Before the travelers could even react, the nimble creatures snatched the remaining food and water and vanished back into the forest canopy. Their chattering fading into the distance, tears of frustration streamed down the girl's face. The boy clenched his fists, his jaw tight with anger, but there was nothing they could do. With heavy hearts and still empty bellies, they forced themselves to keep moving forward. On the second day of their journey, they arrived at a peculiar crossroads. Two distinct paths stretched out before them. The first was a narrow, shadowy trail, almost hidden by a thick curtain of tall, green bamboo stalks. The second path was wide and bright, lined with dry trees, bearing tempting fruits, a path that promised ease and comfort. The boy, remembering their powerful tool, suggested, "Let's ask the calabash." They leaned in close as the calabash emitted a soft, whispery voice. "Take the narrow road," it advised. "The bamboo path." They exchanged confused glances. Why would it guide them toward the more difficult path, the one with no visible food, no signs of comfort, no place to rest? The girl argued, her voice filled with desperation. "But the other road, the dry tree road, it looks so much better. There's fruit everywhere." The boy, however, felt a pull toward the calabash's advice and disagreed. They argued back and forth as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Night was approaching fast. As they stood there, paralyzed by indecision, they noticed a stream of people traveling along the wider, easier road. There were wealthy merchants with their caravans, joyful villagers singing songs, and hunters returning with baskets filled with food. The allure of the easy road grew stronger with every passing moment. The girl clutched the precious calabash tightly, the old woman's warning echoing in her mind. "Do not let anyone touch it." Suddenly, a drunken man, his pet rat perched on his shoulder, staggered toward them. He mumbled incoherently, stumbling as he tried to approach. Fear shot through the young travelers. They instinctively stepped back, not wanting any trouble. In that moment of panic, they made a snap decision. "Let's go," the boy said, pointing to the wide path. "Let's follow the dry tree road, the easy path." They joined the flow of travelers, their earlier argument forgotten, but their choice would soon come to haunt them. Before midnight arrived, they made a horrifying discovery. The second calabash, the one they had guarded so carefully, the one they hadn't yet used, was gone. Panic set in. They searched frantically, retracing their steps, their hands patting the ground in the darkness. It was nowhere to be found. The relief they had felt on the easy road curdled into despair. They cried. They hurled accusations at each other. A bitter silence fell between them. As if the world was mirroring their sorrow, a cold rain began to fall, quickly becoming a torrential downpour that soaked their clothes and extinguished their small fire. Shivering from cold and sadness, they found a dilapidated hut at the edge of the forest and huddled together on the cold, damp floor to wait out the miserable night. On the fourth day, their journey continued in silence. They walked until they reached the banks of a vast, impassable river. The water was dark and churning, the currents strong and violent. There was no bridge, no boat, no sign of a crossing. They tried to wade in, but the river was far too deep. The current, too powerful. It would swallow them whole. The girl whispered, her voice trembling, "Is this our punishment for choosing the wrong road?" The boy couldn't answer. He simply bowed his head in shame. They stood there, utterly hopeless, their journey seemingly at its end. But then, the water before them began to stir. From the murky depths, a magnificent fish rose to the surface. It was enormous, its scales shimmering like silver in the sunlight. The great fish swam to the river's edge and gracefully lowered its broad back, its intelligent eyes looking directly at them. It was an invitation. Though terrified, they felt a strange sense of trust. They climbed onto the fish's strong, smooth back. It carried them effortlessly across the turbulent river, delivering them safely to the other side. And then, as mysteriously as it had appeared, the great fish dipped beneath the waves and was gone. They stood on the far bank, soaked, exhausted, and completely speechless. Their incredible journey far from over. Thank you for watching this powerful African motivational story. What do you think the missing calabash represents? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the thrilling conclusion in part 3.